You could tell political leadership like Esteban is on the beach and you're by the library.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, and
I wish I would
because
have
I did
the
plan
beach
my.
now.
Hold on. There's a few other people joining.
Yeah.
This is actually masking my tool shed.
I was telling a few of them. I was telling a few of them that yesterday there was this clip that was circulated on WhatsApp about a group having a Zoom call like this, and one of the participants decided to go to the loo, and forgot that the video was on this laptop. So she put the video down and she went to the loo, and everyone could see. And in today's age, people will forgive her.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Was it an actual? Was that real, or was that?
Yeah, I heard it was real.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian. How are you? Hi, Ty.
Hi. How are you, Vikas?
Hi,
Hi,
Jaime Saveedra has also joined. Hi, Jaime.
Hey,
Sorry.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Vikas. Hi, Jaime. Hi, there's many faces.
Hi. You there, Dan?
Dan, yeah, I'm here.
Will we have seeing this? Okay, Esteban, over to you. Then we should start.
I think we should do a quick round of introductions. Vikas, why don't you start?
My name is Vikas. For those that don't know me, I was until recently with the Varkey Foundation and embarked on a new venture in education, looking at special needs education. I've known a number of you for a long time, and I look forward to this call. It's actually Esteban's initiative. He called me a few days ago saying we should do it, and that's why we're here. Esteban, you go next.
Yeah, Esteban Bullrich. I used to be the Minister of Education in the city of Buenos Aires and then in Argentina. I've been working alongside following Vika's steps in trying to promote teacher recognition all over the world. And I think it was important for us to start discussing and taking the opportunity of what's going to happen after this pandemic, and try to think together if we can take the opportunity of moving forward in some changes if we can. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'm gonna read the names I have as I move along in my screen. So now it's Yasso.
Hi, I'm Yesterday or Yasso. I met Vikas and we were the people last year where I was the top 10 finalist. I live in Sydney, Australia. I teach in a secondary public school in a low socioeconomic area, and since the prize last year, I actually was appointed as teacher ambassador for the New South Wales Department of Education, which is our largest system here. So I'm in a dual role. I work in a school, but I also work at the department. It's nice to see you all.
Now, Leandro.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leandro Fulgar. I have been appointed as president of Plan Ceibal, the Education Technology Initiative from Uruguay. I've been in that position for 24 days, and we are managing the COVID crisis here with great results in terms of technology acquisition by teachers. So I'm really glad to be here in this group.
Armand, you go next, Armand.
Yeah. Armand Doucet. I'm a teacher in Canada, author of a few books, and have been working hard on trying to figure out how we're going to do distance learning for now and in the future.
David.
Hi, David Edwards, General Secretary of Education International, based in Belgium. 400 teachers organizations around the world. And we have just been surveying our members in terms of readiness and response around COVID-19, and been supporting them as they try to put forward policies and work with governments in terms of keeping the learning going and making sure everyone's safe.
Daniel.
Hello, Dan Moynihan CEO of a group of 50 academy schools, educating 40,000, all of whom are at home. 4,500 would be trying to educate them.
Daniel Dodson now.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel, based in Accra, Ghana. I'm the CEO for Lead for Ghana, the leadership development organization. We work with schools, about 25 schools, impacting close to 2,000 kids, and I'm looking forward to this discussion today.
Ty Goddard.
Hi everyone, Ty Goddard. I work for the Education Foundation, doing a lot of work on ed tech. We've put out advice bulletins to schools. We're supporting schools with their remote learning, and we've just set up a quick website called homelearninguk.com with the latest advice on how to implement, how to think about distance learning. I met Vikas a few years ago, but particularly when I went to Argentina as well, Esteban, as a guest of the British Council, and also met folks from Plan Ceibal as well. It's lovely to be on the call. Hiya.
Andreas.
Yes, hello, Andreas Schleicher, Director for Education Skills at the OECD. And we obviously also are in the middle of all of this. And I must say, actually, I've been very, very encouraged over the last few days how many innovative solutions and ideas are now becoming available, how many companies are willing to share their solutions and products. I do think this is also, as difficult as it is an opportunity.
Thank you. Amel?
Yeah, hi, here's Amel Karboul. I'm based normally in London. I'm now in asylum with my sister in her house in Germany. I'm the CEO of the Education Fund for African Peace, which is started 2 years ago to look at using innovative finance in a pay-for-results mechanism. With two first projects in Ghana and Sierra Leone.
Jaime.
Hi, this is Jaime Saveedra. I'm a Global Director for Education Bank and former Minister of Education, based in Washington, but now happily locked down in Lima.
Okay. Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian Baptista. I'm the CEO of Human Capacity Group, a company you're going to hear a lot more of because it's a brand new venture. So I'm just recovering from COVID-19 with my daughter. Unfortunately, we were diagnosed in, but we know in no real danger. But right now, I'm helping a lot of corporate companies curate the right solutions to give for free during this process.
Alain? Alain?
Yeah, I'm Alain Pascua. I'm the Undersecretary of the Department of Education. The Undersecretary here is just like the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Education. And I'm also on top of our task force on COVID-19 here in the country when it comes to the department.
So
good evening.
The Philippines.
Yeah, Philippines.
Great. You forgot Zeynep. You forgot Zeynep.
Zeynep. I have it next.
Do you have me now, or is it me now, or?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's great to see you. Some are old friends and some new. My name is Zeynep. I am based in Turkey. I established a school here that really believes in education technology and the implementation of technology in educational solutions. Our solution has been tested and proved now because of the COVID-19. We're actually, we have an online school going on now, which is available free of charge to all of the Turkish nation. And we have students who are using our services from 52 different cities around the country. Apart from my founding role as a school education entrepreneur, I recently entered politics, so I have a political hat as well. So I am with a new political party in Turkey and I'm heading the education part of the political party. And the party is headed by a gentleman called Ali Babajan. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but this is not a political call, so I'm just going to end it there.
Thank you. Thank you. Claudia?
Hello, I'm Claudia Costin. I'm the director of the Center for Excellence and Innovation in Education Policies from Getúlio Vargas Foundation in Brazil. And I'm eager to discuss with my colleagues from around the globe on solutions for remote learning. All schools are closed in our country.
Thank you. Asma?
Hi, good morning. My name is Asma Jamali. I'm the advisor to Her Excellency Jamila Al-Mehri, Minister of State for Education in the UAE. I'm currently in Toronto, and all our schools are closed, and we've been using the remote learning platforms of the ministry for a while now, for a week now, and hopefully things will go. I mean, we'll move forward. And I'm looking forward to the discussions today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Denis?
Hello, Esteban and everyone. Thanks, Vikas, for inviting me. I'm Denis Mizne. I'm the CEO of the Lemann Foundation from Brazil. We are coordinating the efforts in Brazil to respond to this, to the schools closures, together with all the secretaries of states of education and municipal secretaries of education. We are currently putting together both the content, the distribution method, both through TV and cell phones, and the engagement of students and parents. So it's been a very, very complex process. Unfortunately, our Ministry of Education is not very helpful right now, but the states and municipalities are very coordinated, and we are trying to help out from the civil society perspective. And things are encouraging. As Andreas said, we see a lot of edtechs and companies and phone companies and TVs trying to help out, but it's a huge coordinating effort. So I'm looking forward to learn in this conversation.
Thank you. And last but not least, Dayung.
Hi, everyone. I'm an associate partner in our Mumbai office at Dalbar. We are a strategic advisory firm. I globally co-lead our education to employment practice and have been asked by our number of NGO clients, as well as been advising the state government of Andhra Pradesh Department of School Education on both how to promote more awareness around the availability of some increasingly free edtech software. Those that have been paid freemium models now have, a lot of them have opened up, but a lot of misinformation or just lack of information, as well as how to improve access and increase affordability for many children who don't have smartphones and so forth. Have been all challenges we've been thinking about. So really wonderful to meet you all, and here to really just learn what best practices are out there globally and share back.
Thank you. So, well, first, thanks to everyone. I think it's a very rich group of people that have joined together. So thank you first. Second, we're going to work with Chatham rules. So we can quote things said here, but not who says them. If everyone agrees, I'm going to record the meeting and then send you a transcript of it without names, just of the ideas that were said here. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So my idea, we've been talking with Vikas about how to organize this, would be that Andreas and David give us a global view, given their perspective of what's going on, and then pretty much open it up for discussions on what's going on, but more importantly, what our prospect is, what our view of the future is, and what things can we do to influence that future. Is that okay?
Yes.
Right. So, Andreas, do you want to start with a global view of what's going on, and then we go to David?
Yeah, I don't I'm not sure I have a global view. I have a view of the kind of OECD countries or the countries that take part in PISA, I think, and I like to sort of do this under 3 headings. You know, what can we do to react to the crisis, to the immediate one? What is done to reassess, you know, our education systems in the wake of this crisis, and then what we can do to rebuild education for a kind of different age. And when it comes to reacting to the current crisis, obviously, you know, remote learning, online learning is now very, very much at the heart of this. There are many countries very active in this. One of the things we're going to actually release data on this tomorrow, we shouldn't forget, is actually the significant share of students who don't even have a study desk at home, who do not have a computer, you do not have, I mean, even the most fundamental kind of prerequisites, not to speak of, you know, parents who push you to learn and go to study, and sort of the social and emotional support that belongs to this. I think the tech part is key for a large number of students, but is not going to reach everyone, and I think we should just be conscious of this. Obviously, the country that went into this first, China, was very, very quick. You know, they have now 50 million learners online, learning simultaneously, both synchronously, you know, with lectures from their teachers, with online resources out there, but you don't see that scale in many countries. I think most countries are really struggling. School closures have left lots of people without very much, despite availability of interesting solutions. When it comes to sort of, so that's basically just sort of the picture as we can see it. You know, the teacher part, you know, we survey teachers, only about a little bit more than half of teachers in the OECD area have any experience with online or remote or digital learning. You know, again, you know, younger teachers are better positioned, but when you think about the human resources that are available, don't underestimate the magnitude of that challenge. And in fact, from the viewpoint of the OECD, where we see the most significant risk to all of this is that we lose the kind of social fabric that schools provide, you know, that relationship between teachers and students. If we do not, you know, act fast and retain that in some ways, and obviously digital technology is also key here to connect teachers, we are going to have a very, very hard time to rebuild that later on. And the students who, you know, for whom school has been a misery from the start are not going to be the great online learners at home. So I think there are very significant challenges there. There's the technological, but there is the kind of social challenge, there's the access challenge. What we are getting is, and I want to offer this to you, we have actually good data now on how well teachers are prepared from our Thales survey. We are going to publish data tomorrow on the student side, basically how well students are equipped for home learning, how much access they have, you know, broadband and things like this for 80 countries, and which I think is very important in this. And together with Harvard Graduate School, we are compiling a database of innovative solutions that are basically, you know, supplied at the front line.
Right. Thank you, Andreas. David, do you want to go?
I mute myself there. Hi, everyone. No, I fully agree with most everything Andreas just said. We're looking at about 124 countries that we've been, by our count, that we know have school closures, and that's growing. I know Australia is making some decisions right now. I was just actually talking with them, impacting about 1.3 billion students and learners. We are, of course, seeing from our member organizations that we've surveyed, we've had responses back from about 40 different countries, but we expect by the 4th of April to get that up around 100 different countries in terms of teacher assessment of whether or not they're having the technology platforms available to them, whether they're having the professional development available to use those platforms, whether that's, you know, in terms of rural areas. I think for us, we have a huge challenge if we think about half of the world's students are not connected via the internet, and teachers themselves are sharing computers in many places. So what we're trying to do is at this point just kind of get a sense as to what the needs are of the teachers' organizations, see which countries they're actually working with, which private sector groups they're working with, which ministries they're in they're having conversations. I'd like to say it's more, but there are also the issues that are going to be had about, because we're hearing some teachers are being told schools are closed, go home. Yeah, school's closed. And then you're getting requests from parents, what can we do? What can we do? And then the teachers are trying to put materials up. And then there's others where the teachers are trying to do sort of asynchronous and synchronous learning at the same time. There's a report that we just did, Armand actually did for us for EI, that's out and can be shared, where within a number of days he crowdsourced sort of what teachers are using and what they find to be useful. We're going to keep doing different versions of that so that we can have one sort of central place for that as well. But I think one of the main concerns for us is really going to be, we have all these great platforms, all this great tech. How do we make sure that it's getting to those who most need it in the most vulnerable and marginalized areas?
Can we also ask Jaime in this round what he's seeing? Jaime?
He's. I didn't want to. I think he left. Jaime, are you there?
No, I'm here. Just my connection was not that good, so I turned off the.
That's why I didn't call on you. Sorry. Do you wanna go ahead and
please tell me?
No. Just give us your perspective on.
Yeah. So no. Got it. So no, very, very quickly, as Andreas was saying, there is a multiplicity of ways to react to this crisis, and what worries us more is the inequity challenge. That now we are in a moment in which the unequal opportunities that already exist, might amplify, because some people have access to a desk, to a computer, and have some internet connectivity, but many people do not. So that's why what we're trying to, in our engagement with different countries, is try to use all possible media. So from online, if you have it, but we're working with TV, with radio, WhatsApp, SMS, any media that children might have available. And actually, I think it's not a good idea now to try to produce more content, but use whatever content exists, either in your country or in any other country in your language, or if you want to invest in translation, okay, that's fine. But basically using, say, WhatsApp, SMS, in order to give structure to contents that you can deliver either through TV or through radio, or in some cases through smartphones. So, the creativity is coming now in terms of combining different media, the old one, the TV, with the SMS or the WhatsApp, so that the teacher then can give some structure to the parent, to the adult in home, for those materials, those contents that can come through different mechanisms, either online or through TV or through radio. And the final point I wanted to make is that there is a lot of investment that now we have to do, and we have not done before, in terms of how to engage parents, either through messages in WhatsApp, through Facebook, through or in some cases through the teacher, if there's some mobility in the country, because the engagement of the parents now is absolutely critical, right? As someone said, a student that struggles in school will struggle also if he or she is at home. So the role of the adult now is absolutely critical, and maybe that's something good that we'll take out of this crisis, right? To make sure that we have better mechanisms to re-engage parents in the whole process. And the other, positive, maybe, trying to find an opportunity in the crisis is try to engage teachers more in online learning, right? And trying to invest as much as we can on supporting teachers in this juncture. So very heterogeneous, right? And I think many countries are scrambling, but there's a lot of creativity out there. And just one point that I want to put for the discussion, I don't know if we're going to have time today, is what's going to happen next, right? What is going to happen once we have very large downturns in many countries, very large stabilization packages? What's going to happen with social budgets, and in particular education budgets?
Yeah.
So we had, thanks a lot, Jaime. We have a couple of other system leaders here who I'd love to hear from. So Dan Moynihan, Alain Pascua from Philippines. I'd love to hear what, Asma actually from the UAE. How are you coping with this, and what are you thinking of it?
Vikas, and others. Yeah. For the last 2 weeks here, we have already suspended classes in some parts of the country, most notably the metropolitan Manila. We suspended the classes here because of the COVID virus, with the COVID threat rather. And this is our second week of being quarantined. There's a enhanced community quarantine, similar, short of a lockdown that have been imposed here in the Philippines. And it was during the 7th or the 8th day of class suspension that we have introduced what we call now the DepEd Commons, or the Department of Education Commons. It's a platform where the OERs, digital contents of lessons that we give to our students are uploaded. It's not yet ready actually, because we've been planning to develop it, but now we were forced to upload it so that our students at home would be able to access them. And in a matter of 5 days, we already breached a 1 million access of that DepEd Commons, looking, giving us the, what we call this, the relevance of online learning here in the Philippines. And even though connections are not quite good at the moment, but it seems that our teachers and our learners are craving for this kind of platform here. And it was during this time that we were able to launch it silently. And it's good when it comes to teachers and learners, no? So our school year is about to end next week. It's supposed to be graduation time, but since there's already a suspension of classes, then we move on to the introduction of online learning. And we're getting positive feedback coming from parents and coming from teachers. Since the students, the learners are inside the house, it's time for them to check what they have learned for the past few months and what other things to learn using their cell phones, their tablets, their laptops. And we are very happy to note that the response is really generally very positive here in the Philippines. And we are taking this kind of opportunity and this kind of what they call this acceptance coming from both learners, parents, and teachers, that we would want to enhance this kind of online learning now and move on for the next 2 months or 3 months with this kind of setup and framework already in mind. So we will be doing all the things that we can do while on quarantine and while not going outside because some of us are really, we really have to enforce some kind of a semi-lockdown yet. No, but it's an enhanced kind of community quarantine that we are now doing here.
Alain, how do you get over the point that other people have made regarding access and inequity?
You know, in the Philippines, about 46% only of all schools have connection. That's the entire country. But the 46% of schools, which would translate easily into 22,000 plus schools, but the population of those schools already represent about 70% of the entire student population. So the remaining 50% of schools that are not connected here are on the last mile schools or the power plant communities where there are no available signals coming from telecommunications company. Those are the areas where we plan to lay down the infrastructure for the connectivity of those schools. So right now, the enhanced community quarantine is imposed on Metro Manila in the National Capital Region. And the National Capital Region is about 98 to 99% connected. You know, this is the metropolis, and this is the capital of the Philippines. So we're looking at even the poorest here have connection. That's why when we introduce the concept of a DepEd Commons on an online platform for educational materials, it is in this context that we would want to encourage those in Metro Manila to have access on that because they have the kind of connectivity that they need to access those. No, of course, we also accept the fact that while many are not yet connected, we can do this time a sort of introduction while we still plan to do the connectivity in other parts of the country. Before we run, we have to walk, and this is how we're doing right now. It's an option for all of us. And it's the only option now if you are in quarantine.
Dan Moynihan, there's two questions. One is that exams have been cancelled by our government, and you run a pretty large chain and system of schools, and we're not at the end of the academic year. How do you see, how is it worked out, and when do you see students coming back?
I think the cancellation of exams has been devastating, the right decision, but we've got thousands of students who were 4 weeks away from doing their end of school exams, and many others were going to do their pre-university exams. We call them A-levels. So they've lost purpose, and our schools are in very disadvantaged to the capital city. And many of our families have got chaotic lives, and the exams are one of the keys that have kept them together and kept them on a straight and narrow. So we've started teaching for the next stage. So students who are 16, we've started now teaching for university entrance, and we're doing it online. We've got all of the kind of concerns people have mentioned. We're worried that the disadvantage will open up. We're worried this will differentially affect the poorest children, many of whom are in our schools. We worry about the social aspect of this because we are a hub in many cases for chaotic families. We get good outcomes, but many chaotic families, and we provide the link to social services. We know what's going on in their lives. We no longer can do that, and online learning doesn't compensate for the kinds of things that our kids need to do. And I suppose the most effective technology we're finding, we're using Microsoft Teams, we're using all sorts of other things, but it's teachers on the telephone to youngsters checking they're okay and encouraging them to get on with their work. And the upside is our teachers are planning curriculum materials centrally, and when we do get back to work, and we expect that to be September, our curriculum schemes and schemes of work will be much stronger as a result of this, and we've got to use that positively as an opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Dan. And Asma?
Well, it's a bit complicated maybe in the UAE because we have the public schooling system and a predominantly private schooling system. To talk more about from a state level, we can talk about two things when we're dealing with this crisis: the reactivity, so what is it that we've done immediately, and then maybe we can talk about the long-term impact and what are we expecting and what can we gain from this whole experience. The downside of the reactivity is that I've heard many terms used today. So is it online learning? Is it remote learning? Is it, what are we trying to achieve? So that was the first question. So are we trying to keep the children busy? Are we trying to continue with our education system as if nothing happened? So there were a lot of questions. Maybe the issue of technology is not, it's not a big problem in the UAE in terms of infrastructure or access to technology. I think that wasn't a big issue in the UAE. Maybe the next question was content development. We have a lot of resources online, but the decision was taken that at least in the public sector, the teachers would be teaching their classes normally. So it was remote learning, not like fully integrated ICT integration. So in terms of content, we have contacted big publishing companies to provide a lot of resources, and it is open resources. So whatever the Ministry of Education is doing for the public sector, everyone in the private sector has access to that. So that's in terms of content. we as well, we see centralized planning as well, in the public sector at least. The teachers were trained for a whole week on how to use the resources online, how to use the Microsoft Teams, etc. So that was done pretty quickly because we already have the infrastructure in place. The next big challenge was the parents, because as this is something new, and there were a lot of challenges. So the technical support from the ministry was something that was established, and a big issue because the parents had to actually go and help the children register in the classes, etc. So that was one of the challenges that we were facing as well. In terms of the roles of teachers, maybe it's much easier in the higher grades as opposed to the earlier years, where the children need much more scaffolding and support. So the parents are saying that they need to have much more hands-on involvement in their children's education, let's say. So in terms of reactivity, when I said the downside of reactivity is that I see that at some point it was a missed opportunity. Sorry, when some teachers just think that I'm going to continue with whatever I've been doing, just running a classroom and explaining the lesson and expecting the children to just interact and work on the assignments that I give them. I feel that it is a missed opportunity if we don't maybe take the time to think about individualizing the learning and maybe utilizing the time of the students and the teachers in a better way. This is still very fresh. We have a lot still to do. But in terms of the major challenges, again, it is the dealing with the crisis and any emerging issues in terms of connectivity or other. That's what I can think of.
Thanks. Leandro, you were saying at the beginning that you saw a good reaction from teachers getting in touch with the technology and wanting and seeking the technology knowledge. Can you expand a little bit on that? And I know David has to leave Q2, so I would like David, before you leave, to just give an overview of teachers' technology and this idea that I think was very interesting that was just brought in by Dan about the importance of teachers getting on the phone even and moving that from the even virtuality, the need for the teacher-student contact. Go ahead, Leandro.
Yes, well, here in Uruguay, the reaction from teachers has been amazing. I mean, we had to quadruple the capacity of our servers because of the massive change to the learning platform that we work with. Actually, we multiplied by 11 the access to the platform from the same time in 2019. So, I mean, in this moment, we are trying to give support to that massive passage of teachers to online learning. We're trying mainly a platform-based asynchronous model, which is not trying to, let's say, change the formal system by the online learning system. We're trying to say and work with the idea that this is not the same as going to school. The school year has just started here in Uruguay. We started on the 2nd of March, on March the 2nd, and on March the 6th, we closed all schools. So, and it's going to be like that till at least April the 14th. So we are trying to harness the power of innovation that teachers are decentralizedly having. So we try to follow up with all the strategies that they are trying to put out there for students in Instagram, in Facebook, in all the platforms, and encouraging them to centralize them in the national platform which we have decided to use. The response has been amazing. We are also dealing with the aspect of the devices. Plan Ceibal also gives one device per student. So as school districts have been closed, we have our development team has been working all night long, 24/7, to develop a scheduling system so that families can go pick up their devices one by one without making big groups and agglomerations to prevent from contagious. And we are working with that. We pilot that in one province, and we are moving to 10 more provinces tomorrow. The access to the other integrated platforms that we work with in the LMS, the mathematics, the language, and other platforms that we integrate in our main LMS, has been also multiplied by 9. So we are really dealing with a massive movement from teachers to the online learning. We have been working, and today I have a big day with that, with the telecoms companies, because we need to give this, the national telecom company allowed 5 gigabytes of usage for free for this platform, and all the URLs .edu.ui are not consuming data. But it's in 3 days, teachers consume all this. So we have to rethink about how we're going to give the bandwidth that teachers need for this change. But in general, from where I sit and from what I see, I think that we are in the verge of a great opportunity here. I think that after this crisis, teachers, families, students are not going to be the same. We're not going to be the same, but they are not going to be the same in terms of their skills and capacity to work online and to deal with education online. The learning experience from the online world is different, and we know it. But I think that we should be thinking how it is different and what kind of students, teachers, and families we're going to have after we overcome this crisis.
Thank you, Leandro. David, I know you have to leave. What is your perspective in terms of what's going to come out of this? Do you see a long-term impact? You think it's something that's going to be temporary, or can we use this to have a good rethinking of the whole usage of technology in the classroom and in the schools?
Yeah, thanks everyone. I do. I also think that one of the things that we're hearing is this outpouring from parents to teachers all over the world. Oh my gosh, what you do is so difficult. We're trying to do it here in homeschooling in such a limited way, but you do it with such greater scale, trying to collect the data, trying to be able to track, differentiate instruction, do all these things that the expectations are. And so Andreas's new blog that came out on the Talus launch yesterday was talking about teacher stress and well-being and trusting teachers. And I think a societal support for teachers and the work that they do and making sure that they have the time, tools, and trust to do that is going to be something that should be. Although when I tweet about it, some people go, yeah, well, it's pretty short-lived. We'll forget about it when we get to the other side. But I actually think that teacher well-being piece is important. I think that time management, what we're hearing from teachers using the tech, who are now more accessible, but now their WhatsApps are exploding, the phone calls are late night, they're sleeping less, they're getting, trying to deal with their own children and things that are happening there. So we have to find workable solutions and procedures to make sure that they can get that balance so that they're available, but they're also kind of protecting, because just like we're seeing with health workers on the front lines in terms of the stress and the breakdown, we're also starting to see some of the cracks there, and the TALIS certainly supports that. I think one of the things we're also going to see is a lot more mentoring and a lot more peer support coaching so technology platforms that can support that. There's a whole lot of teacher candidates that have written to us and said, my praxis, how do I do praxis now? I can't get in. I was ready to become a teacher, a fully qualified teacher, and now I can't do this. So we have to think about how that part goes. We also have to think about, I think, some of the protocols that will allow for the legislative frameworks that we need in order to make sure that we don't keep repeating the same mistakes. I think the lessons in Uruguay are very good ones that we can all draw from in terms of looking at the bandwidth, what's the appropriate role for the tech companies, thinking about making sure that we're not just, if you're going to roll something out, that there's the adequate time for teachers to be able to trial it. There's some sort of vetting group and period of time where teachers can sort of vet and quality control and make sure it's going to work, that we don't just pick the cheapest and the easiest and the lightest. And the last thing is, I'm thinking back, and Jaime probably knows a lot more of this than I do, but, telesecundaria and Claudia in Mexico.
Yes.
We've got decades of experience doing distance education, using television, using radio. Wouldn't it be great to be able to take some of the stuff from rural Nicaragua and be able to use that now in, Flanders, Belgium? Wouldn't it be great to be able to use some of the research and the findings so that we can actually integrate in a more comprehensive way across all the different platforms around a curriculum that provides the training and the time and the tools and I will leave with this, and I know everyone is dedicated to that, the equity piece, because the digital divide masks an equity divide, which masks a learning divide, which at the end of this could be one group that's ready to go, teachers that have been able to plan, use all this time to be ready to go as of September. Another place where teachers have been in the dark for that entire same period of time, and students are further and further behind. So I think there has to be a pro-poor, and I hope that the international financial institutions are, when they're making the resources available, canceling debt and all of that, are certainly doing that for the poorest countries. Thank you all very much. I look forward to getting the readout on this, and you can count on EI and me to stay engaged. This is something this is at the front of our heads and our minds and hearts. Best to you all.
Thank you, David.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you.
David.
I want to go to, if it's okay, I want to take Denis's experience, because Denis runs a huge foundation in Brazil, and actually, Claudia, you should also come into this. Denis, one of the things that they've done in the foundation, even before this crisis, was have a belief in EdTech, and what you did there was quite interesting. But tell us about your experience in Brazil, both of you. So I'll start with Denis, and then we go to Claudia. And then after that, what I want to do is go to Ty, because I think, Ty, you've got a great amount of experience of doing this in the UK context that you can speak about as well. So Denis.
Thank you, Vikas. So I think in line with a lot of people said, Leandro said about not trying to replicate the same lessons as it was a day-to-day school. It's not going to happen. This is happening in top private schools in Brazil, where the teachers are speaking in live platforms like Zoom and others. What we're trying to do for the public school system, and it's going live this Monday in the state of São Paulo. It's also working in Amazonas and Bahia already. So these are huge states in Brazil, is to use a capacity to put on air through both TV and an app that was specially developed. And this app has sequences of learnings for each school grade. So it's, if you are in first year, first grade, you go to this first grade, and you're going to see a combination of videos and just, worksheets, things that you can do. Some secretaries of education are sending to students' homes the print version in the more richer states. If not, it's at least available online. In the beginning of the day, there's a video explaining how students should organize and how they should follow the list. But the list is the same, and this is happening now in Sao Paulo, but the idea is that we're going to have the same list because now we have national learning standards in Brazil. So a first grade kid, ideally it would be for their context and adapted for each state and each city and each school, but at least now we can, in this time of crisis, we can consider just the common curriculum and people get the same access. So the first thing is putting on an app, because once you put on an app, you can do 0 rating for the students. And this is what's happening here. So the departments of education and the private sector are paying so that students can use from any cell phone, 3G, 4G, and they don't have to pay and use their data. So this is the equity piece. So this combination of access through unpaid app and TV is good. The second thing that we're putting up on Monday is on YouTube to have like special channels for each grade. So even if you don't have the government app, if you haven't downloaded just YouTube, we have a partnership with Google here for many years now called YouTube EDU. The Lemann Foundation does the curation and Google does the distribution. And so we have reorganized all the content to be again on playlists so they can follow. And then every Monday morning and every Tuesday morning, we have a celebrity teacher going online and saying, you know, engaging the students, engaging the parents, because we have a community of YouTubers in Brazil, which are very popular with education YouTube videos. So we're mobilizing them and they came on board and they are doing this. The last part is we have experiences, as it was mentioned before by David, with Telecurso that happened with the Global TV, did this, and Fundação Roberto Marinho for many years. So they opened this content, which is basically learning by TV. And the only thing we're trying to get from the government, and we didn't get right now, is to have like special channels for each year, because it's hard to convince the kids to sit and everybody watch like the 8th grade math, right? And then it's 9th grade. So if we could have parallel TV channels, so this is what we're trying to do now. So, and last part is we negotiated with WhatsApp, and we're trying to put together an official WhatsApp with all the big APIs that WhatsApp offers for a very small number of clients, so that you have an official communication from the Secretary of Education to the students and the teachers. So an official thing saying, the app is available, download the app. Did you do your studies today? And just, you know, nudges to get people engaged. So I think that's, I mean, there are a lot going on and I'm happy to share afterwards, but these are some of the highlights of what we're trying to do.
Denis, what was the name of the app?
Sorry, so it's IPTV. It's a special app here. It's the same people who work with the Media Center on the Amazon. So some of you may have heard of that, which is a center that exists in Manaus in the middle of the Amazon, where they broadcast with 55 teachers. With 11 teachers, they teach 55,000 students in remote areas. So it's the same company who did this that is now making this available for free to states. And São Paulo state is the first one launching it. And now it's, you know, Bahia and Amazonas are also using. Our idea is that every state will eventually either use this app or create a similar app. And the same thing with the negotiation on if it's Google Classrooms or Microsoft Teams, the cell phone operators cannot make it 0 rating. That's the problem with using an open traditional platform. You have to have an app so they can identify this app, and when the students are using it, they are able not to charge the user, like they do with Facebook, for example, or WhatsApp in some private plans for people who have prepaid cell phones. So that's the solution we found so far. And I'm betting big on TV. It's taking a little longer to organize, but I'm betting big on using TV to broadcast high quality content that already exists. Last part of the plan is getting the schools ready for when the students come back. So this is what we're starting to work next week.
And how much, as a private foundation, how much money are you putting into this?
It's not a lot of money so far. It's a lot of coordination, right? So the biggest effort is on curation and organization of materials, is hosting a Every day we have a call with the head of secretaries of states of education, municipal secretaries of education, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Communications Technology. So something like we're doing here. It's organizing all the foundations in Brazil. So we have twice a week a call with all the foundations. And then it's putting people to help the states. So we are going to fund people in all the 27 states in Brazil. We'll put a project manager to work with the Secretary of Education remotely just to help them get organized. So this is another thing that helps, right? We see this in other projects. So it's truly not a lot of money. It's a lot of just coordination and organizing the resources and helping to negotiate with all the different sectors.
Vikas?
Hi, Claudia.
Can I jump in quickly?
Yes, please.
Yes. So first, it's amazing what Lemann Foundation has been doing in a country where there is lack of coordination from the government part, if I can be candid with you all. If we do have now national standards, it's because of them. And if we have a response for this crisis, it's because of them and the leadership of one of the secretaries, which is the Secretary of the State of São Paulo, who was our previous minister. And so things are moving fast. Lots of agency from different actors, but Lemann Foundation has been in charge of coordination, and it's a very accepted coordination from all the stakeholders. One thing that I want to emphasize very quickly, I am the mentor of more than 30 secretaries of education from subnational level, is that we are dealing here also with non-technology, let's say, or non-ed tech. So printed materials had been sent to rural schools and to the last mile. But another thing that helped us move fast is the fact that before the coronavirus crisis, Lemann Foundation was promoting connectivity for all schools. So an initiative together with the government, not the Ministry of Education lately, but with the government to promote connectivity for education purposes for all schools. And so this had helped a lot. Another thing is that they mobilized teachers to prepare class plans available for all. So they have for every subject area class plans ready for normal schooling. But with that, it made transforming those classes into classes that can be provided online much easier. So there is not only a mobilization of secretaries of education, but also of teachers, of classroom teachers. That is my comment. And I'll have to leave in 3 minutes.
Thanks, Claudia. Ty.
Hi. Hello from Brighton in the UK. It's the third day of closure. We still have some schools that are open to provide care centres for the children of emergency workers, vulnerable young people and young people with special needs. The general overview, I would say, from the UK is patchy. It's very bumpy. I think people are adjusting to a new culture, new behaviours, a new life. I think the role of people, we have schools that were very, very well equipped digitally. We have teachers who were very sophisticated with digital. I think they were investigating blended learning already. So they are the bright spots. We're struggling with infrastructure in England. We're struggling with what Claudia called the last mile in terms of speeds. We're struggling in terms of skills. So it's uneven. Places like Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, Vikas, are slightly different. They've had digital strategies for longer. They've got national platforms. And I'm with Denis here, is that coordination and curation is absolutely crucial. And we don't yet have that coordination in terms of digital in England. We've got some great work by the BBC. We've got Bite Size. We've got a lot of celebrities that are beginning to come online and provide physical education at 9 o'clock in the morning with over 1 million people looking at on Facebook. But generally, my analysis is probably further ahead, more comfortable in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in England, despite the real jewels, and there are some fantastic jewels out there, we're still getting immense challenges. And some of the quick learning are that schools think that home learning is going to be the same as at school, and it's not. They're making young people do too much at home, and they're doing it too similar to learning in the classroom and in the lecture theatre. So it's uneven, it's bumpy, but it's interesting. Where does it go? I don't know yet. I think the government in England particularly has got to get a grip on what this might look like in the long term. This is our first week. This is our third day. What this will look like, I don't know. I think the opportunities are there, but it's very difficult to talk about opportunity at a moment like this.
Ty, though, you've done a lot of work in the last few years regarding advocating for things like EdTech policies with the Department for Education. And when we did, Esteban, Claudia, myself, when we looked at this across the world, there's not that much of a view from ministries of education to think about this because they're limited to think just about hardware. You want to speak a little bit about that and how that prepares our education system in leapfrogging, because we want to turn the focus onto, well, what happens after this? How do you reboot? What do you do next? What are you going to see the trends that emerge out of this shutdown or lockdown of schools? Your perspective would be fascinating in that regard.
I think if I was to focus on Wales, yeah, so it's to the big west of London, yeah, small country. I'm half Welsh. It's one of the most superb places in the world. Besides that, it's got a different education system from England. Scotland has as well. Now, what marks them out as different is that both have got well-established platforms that have been designed by teachers, so co-created with teachers, with resources, with access to technology. So in Wales, I can access the Microsoft, I can access Google. Each teacher has a sign-in to the national platform, which is called the Hub, HWB, Hub in Welsh, the Welsh language, HWB. Every student has got a sign-in, and it's very, very different. If I was to compare and contrast Wales with England, we don't have a national platform. Everybody is using different technologies. Everybody is reinventing the wheel. I think also that parents are hearing lots of different things from Facebook. There's no clear message on digital. England only had its digital strategy published last April. That's April 2019. Wales and Scotland 4 to 5 years earlier. So what I'm interested in, and it's our challenges, and we're a small organisation, but our challenge is how do you capture the learning from the jewels in the system? And there are an amazing amount of jewels in the system that have got this right. They've got the balance between human and technology. They've got the balance between celebrating the social. What we're seeing in early years and primary is we're seeing Zoom school assemblies. We're seeing circle time at primary schools. I mean, this is fantastic. This isn't about learning necessarily. This is about the human, and they've got it right. I think what we're seeing at secondary, and Dan said this earlier from the Harris Federation, is people just being really knocked sideways about their exams. So they'll have spent 2, 3, 4 years studying for those exams, and then just all of a sudden they're not going to do that. What does the system look like after this? It might look like a system in England that thinks that technology could be useful for learning. I feel that our system too often has thought that you've just got to have a teacher delivering lessons to pupils rather than exploring how technology can support teaching and learning. So for us, yes, it is potential. There is a lot of potential, but I think we've got to be careful how we phrase that opportunity, how we talk about that opportunity in times of crisis.
So Armand, Yasso, Zeynep, and Daniel Dotche, you're all at the coalface when it comes to schools. I would love to, Esteban, if it's okay with you, sorry, I should have asked you. Is it okay in terms of, for all four of you to provide your perspective as to where we'll be in a year's time, not today?
Is it okay if I go first? Because unfortunately I need to drop off momentarily. I'm so sorry to everybody else. First of all, I don't expect that the schools, the Turkish schools have been closed for 2 weeks. The Turkish Ministry of National Education has brought forward a TV-based solution, but this has brought obviously several changes to the way we look at education. First of all, transparency. What's going on in the classroom is now completely available for everybody to see. I think this is a major shift in the way we look at education. And because of this transparency, there have been issues about what the Ministry of National Education, the curriculum that the Ministry of National Education has been following in Turkey. That's one. It's the second one is education technology and how we incorporate that into our educational delivery. So in terms of the delivery, we realize that now most teachers are not ready. And it's not only the teachers, but it's also the administrators, the managers of schools. This is what who's not ready. And our school was the only one who was able to go fully online basically the day after the schools closed. Why? Because this is why we were basically established. We believed in this. And and I don't expect that the schools are going to be open until September. And I believe they're probably not going to open perhaps another few months after September. And that means that this is a tipping point for education as we know it. Education is going to be changing, and we're going to be using more and more online tools, and it's going to be a very different form of blended education from now on. I think we all need to come together. We need to build ecosystems, and we need to use best practices, and things are not going to be the same.
Thank you, Zeynep. If you need to go, please go ahead, but we hope to reconvene.
I'm so sorry. This has been great for me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Armand, Daniel, Yasso, whoever wants to go, it's fine.
I can pipe in.
Okay, Armand, you can go. I need to hop in.
Oh, go ahead.
Daniel, okay. Go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, I want to take the opportunity to kind of describe the context that we are working in and try to figure out where I think we will be, in a year's time. So we kind of just divided this thing into two issues. We have the academic achievement aspect, and then you have the mindset development, which involves students interacting with each other. And when you put all the courses online, it's good because kids can then have access to the academic achievement part. But the other side, which is the social construct, are kids playing with each other? How are they learning with each other? How are they interacting with each other? And you kind of just lose out on all that aspect. So you're trying to figure out how do you still get that whilst pushing all academic, learning onto an online platform. the context we are dealing with is, number one, we don't have internet in most of the schools that we operate in. So the talk of computers and so forth, it's not even a discussion. The next thing too is phones. Can we use phones? That's something we've also explored, and it's also not really working because the students don't have phones and the parents also don't have phones. And beyond that too, we have a huge language barrier. So you have a teacher, and this is a country with about 40-something different languages. So a teacher calls the parents and they don't even understand what the teacher is saying. So you've lost that, teacher to parent interaction from that realm. The other thing too is sensitizing people. You will be shocked to know that some of the schools that we are operating in, people don't even believe that COVID-19 is real and that there's something huge happening globally. So you kind of also have to sensitize them and let them know that this is actually real and this is not a gimmick, and this is actually posing huge challenges before you even start talking to them about education and how to educate the kids in the classroom. So for us, there is so much going on that a lot of the solutions that are being proposed is just not working for us, or we're just drawing blanks. The best bet we have right now, I think a couple of people have mentioned it, is TV and radio. So what we're trying to do is put some programs on TV, because at least when parents don't have phones, at least every house has TV and the kids can watch TV and learn from that. But when you live in a country with something different languages, then whatever programs you have to be translated to these languages so the sub-kids will be able to benefit from it as well. But Vickers, to answer your question, where do I think we are going to be in 1 year? From Ghana's perspective, and maybe I'll probably talk about Uganda and Nigeria because of Teach for Nigeria, Teach for Uganda, and talking to the CEOs over there. I think things are going to remain the same. It's going to take a really long time for kids in our context to get close to having the resources to be able to face these challenges if they ever come up again. I think things are going to probably remain the same after 1 year. It's going to take a really long time. We'll have to be looking at this 10 years down the line. How do we make this a long-term solution? But 1 year after this, I think the kids will just go back to the classroom. Things will be as it is before, unless we have some strong leadership that is thinking about this in a longer term.
Daniel, can I ask you a question with regards to Ebola struck many of the countries in your neighborhood? What happened there? Would you know?
So, yeah, well, at least Ghana was lucky enough to dodge Ebola, but I have a fair idea of what happened in Liberia. And I think this confirms my prediction that what is going to happen 1 year after. Schools just closed down. This is what happened in Liberia. Schools just closed down. When Ebola was over, students just went back to school as normal. Nothing really changed in terms of structures and systems. And I feel that this is what might happen. My hope is, because this is such on a global level, the advocacy for something drastic to happen in low-income communities or the kind of schools that we deal with would be vastly different, because there's just so much more knowledge out there and there's so much more advocacy out there for it.
Thanks a lot for that. Armand, Yasso, please.
I'm hoping that funding is going to change for innovation in education from the front lines. I think we're going to see something that we're going to see a more robust investment in trying to figure out how do we do this in these types of times, because we're going to see on and off, I believe, the economy, like they're saying in the US, at one point they're going to turn on the economy, and we'll probably see another spike in COVID-19 in a couple of months from now and so on. So my belief is that this is the setup to how we're going to do this throughout the next stoppages that we're going to see throughout the next year. So I'm hoping that that's what's going to happen. What we're seeing is that in terms of pedagogy is that you really need to switch to developing talent versus sorting and grading. And I think that's where the ones that are really ready to shift to distance learning, and I call it distance learning, not blended learning, because blended learning, to me, you still have the school aspect of it. So really distance learning with an online component to it. where if you are already looking at a pedagogical style that sets up developing talent, and that you are basing your outcomes and essentials that students are trying to reach them instead of trying to be graded for them, it's quite a different philosophy. Then they're well set up to be ready for this type of time. What we're seeing in terms of when we crowdsourced the information for the independent report was the number one thing for teachers at this point is Maslow before Bloom. So really taking care of the social glue, social connectedness, and making that relevant for students. So WhatsApp, making students connect with each other, but at the same time, as teachers, you're the frontline data person. So you got to make sure that you're doing it in an ethical way to protect those students, right? So, but that's the first thing, is taking care of them. And we also have meal plans set up where we're sharing those. We have inequities with bandwidth. So one of the things that we've been doing is putting a server into a school bus where people can drive to from their car, get access to the information, and then after that go back home. So that's one of the ways that it's been done. But it's very Maslow first, and then go to Bloom. And then once you're going to Bloom, you have to understand that parents are working from home with only one device, or possibly no devices. So how you're getting that information to children, either via radio, TV, texting, whatever which way, it needs to be extremely simple for parents that have that situation happening at home, so that they can give it to the child and the child can go at work. And you have to understand, from K to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12, it's variously different and different throughout subjects. So the independent report sort of looks at that from the distance learning point of view. How much online do we want them to do? How much physical, mental, asynchronous versus synchronous learning? And we've crowdsourced the information from many jurisdictions around the world, and we're putting it out again soon. So that's sort of what we're seeing. And at the delivery, I think we'll clean it up. So within a year, because what I really think is that the next breakage or the next stoppage of time will be, okay, we've gone through this. Step 1, emergency. What do we do? Okay, does everybody all right? How do we stop this spread? Step 2, week 2. Okay, now we're in teaching mode, which is the UNHCR's emergency protocol for refugees. But in this situation, we all are refugees in our own homes in some ways. So how do you process that from that perspective? I think that's where the world needs to step into it and figure that one out. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's sort of how my mind is thinking about it at this point.
Fantastic. And yeah, so in Australia, what's it like?
In Australia, I don't know if you've been following what's been happening here. We've had some very confusing messages to parents, teachers, and communities about school closures. Even on Sunday evening, there was basically a hint by 2 state premiers, including in my state, New South Wales, that schools would close on Tuesday. And then there was a press conference on Sunday night by our Prime Minister following a cabinet meeting saying that schools will stay open. And so there's a high level of uncertainty in which teachers have been operating in the last few weeks. Our system, the bigger system of public schools, has responded with a really great system initiative with a learning from home website that I shared on the chat, where we've got subject and primary school teams uploading resources and like sequences of learning the sample. What they've also sent out and encouraged us to do is to have Microsoft Teams staff rooms, like for the system. And it sort of just generated all of this innovation in the last few weeks. Having said that, although we've got like guides and professional learning run by the system on like Google Classroom and Teams are the 2 recommended platforms in terms of accessibility, and we've got like the license to use them through our department. A lot of teachers are trialing these for the first time. So at my school, we've had a full Google domain for the last few years. We have an equity program for laptops. You know, there's more than 100 students at my school out of 1,000 who don't have access to even any sort of device. But what we realized was internet and data is an issue. So the department itself is looking into that, but we're literally going day by day. We're going to work. We have a briefing in the morning from our principal. We're seeing different things in other schools. And it's a great energy from teachers to embrace this. At the same time, it is important to acknowledge that there's a lot of people a lot of teachers that have felt quite angry and uncertain about it, and there's been some commentary on social media, especially in terms of the confusion with social distancing and schools that has come out. So even last night there was more things that came out and expanding social distancing, and I think that uncertainty in communication has been something that teachers and principals in particular have had to lead the communication. So just yesterday we got the message that went out to our state that schools will stay open for any parent that needs to send their students. But parents were encouraged to keep students at home, and that no child would be disadvantaged, whether they're at school or at home. So that immediately, again, teachers have been trying to do things differently. For me personally, I had a Google Hangout, all of these things about, you can't do the same thing online as you can at school. I agree, but I guess that's the tension. Basically, how can we do that in an equitable way and also issue printed booklets and things for students that just can't access a device? Or in the area that I work in, a lot of senior students look after younger siblings so their parents can work. We're also dealing with a lot of our parents work in the industries that have just been shut down this week, including in retail and hospitality. And what is that economic impact on families going to look like? Our system is still saying that our final HSC for New South Wales will go ahead at the end of the year. The University Admissions Board said no student will be disadvantaged, but they have cancelled the university exams in May that happened for year 5, year 3, year 7, and year 9. So yeah, we're sort of dealing with national news, state news, and even as a teacher, trying to work out if we are going to go ahead with our final exams, what is that going to look like if we have students at school, students at home, and at this stage we're still open. So there's a lot of tension around that. But I've got to say that people have shown a lot of adaptability, like teachers and students, in experimenting with this. But I've got to say that from even a school and a system perspective, there's big grey areas in terms of copyright. There's big grey areas in terms of teachers, editing their videos on third-party sites. And I think these are some of the things that people aren't really thinking about when it comes to things, but we could actually get into a lot of trouble for. So that idea of, things that we can access for free, making sure that people know that the same rules apply when it comes to permission to publish in online platforms and getting parent access if it's not an approved particular platform. And there's a lot of professional learning to do. I work in professional learning as well. And I think there's some real tricky areas where a lot of things can go wrong that we need to be very cautious of. Teachers are also worried that even in live streaming their classes in the last few days as trials, parents have been in the background and they're worried about being judged or, that being filmed and being posted on social media. And there's a bit of anxiety around that too. So we haven't forced anyone to say, you have to record or you have to go live stream, but taking that same approach, whether it's an instructional video or working on different resource booklets. But at the moment, we are literally just waiting for the next update to come through and adapting every single day about what may or may not happen. Carrying things back and forth because we think schools might close, but we're not sure, just in case we can't go back.
Can I ask a question that is a little bit off-piste, and perhaps after that, Esteban, we can conclude. But in terms of if there was a winner, a tech winner out of the corona crisis, who would it be?
I think for us, Google Classroom has worked really well with students. It's free. It works on, very cheap devices in terms of Chromebooks and phone apps. But we have been using Microsoft Teams for staff meetings. Both of those, different schools in our system use different ones for different purposes. But I think students really love Classroom. It's like social media. There's so many apps that integrate within it, and that's been something that our school thankfully has used since 2016. But where I work with beginning teachers, they're still learning how this uses, and so there's of course we need to acknowledge that even though we have these great tools and platforms, there are some people that have barely used them, and others that are very happy to just give things a go. And that professional learning for teachers needs to be acknowledged as well.
I'd say the big two, Vikas. So Google Education and Microsoft, and Zoom's embedded in Microsoft Teams now. So you're seeing those services, as well as any app that would have math or literacy components to it that from the younger grades the parents can use. Those are definitely the tech apps that would be the ones that are going to be used the most at this point. In terms of independent learners at the higher grades, it's not necessarily the MOOCs. I think it's Khan Academy and Coursera, the ones that they can go online and get their information quite quickly. You have other ones like iPixel, IAA, the ones that are doing physics, calculus, anything that's engineering based, because those courses are the ones that the grade 12s or the senior ones that are going into engineering will need a crunch of information to be able to survive in that first year.
Leandro, you work in tech as well in Uruguay. What's your perspective on this?
I think that the winner by far in Uruguay right now is Zoom. But in the part of trying to migrate to video conference, because we had the basic of the platform, the LMS platform, which is Schoology for everyone. So that's why we can start worrying about, okay, what's the next step? Okay, trying to bring video conferencing tools to this platform to make it more seamless, to make the pedagogical experience more intentional. So I think that now that's the big discussion here, what kind of software to use there. We also have, as Armand was saying, a lot of attention in Matific and PAM, which are our platforms for mathematics, and from some open resources also that integrate or are embedded in the Schoology platform.
Ty, do you have a view? Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Ty, you are muted.
I am muted. Sorry. I agreed with Leandro about Zoom. Apologies. Zoom. And I think Google and Microsoft, and only recently, like last night, have Apple responded. But one of the issues, again, and I think this is about the future, is that those are all in silos. Yeah, you've got the Google incubating the Googlers, you've got the Microsofts incubating the Microsoft networks, and Apple. You know, these are very powerful networks, but they work in verticals. They don't necessarily work together as corporates. They don't work across to build the system. What I'd like to see in the future, one of the future things I hope, is that they work better together to build the case for EdTech, to build the case for technology in education. But they don't really. I don't know what it's like in your countries, but they're very separate.
Yeah. Asma, any last words from you on this?
Well, I guess I like to think about the future, and I hope that there'll be a lot of lessons learned. And instead of just reacting to things, I really wish that we could just have a system where we would really utilize technology in a way that allows for individualized learning. I think that moving away from the traditional classrooms and traditional schools is a dream of mine, and I'm really hoping that this crisis will help us move away. I mean, it pains me to see that people are still trying to replicate whatever's going on in a traditional classroom now on an online platform. To me, that's a disaster, because people are in an emergency mode. They can't just maybe pull back and just examine the possibilities. And because I've heard about innovation, and there is a lot of innovation. There are a lot of teachers out there who are brilliant. And I feel that technology helps us. Not everyone needs to be an expert. It's enough to just have, just like Ty said, you have the dual schools, or I don't know what you call them, having very good examples out there that could be utilized by everyone. I don't need to have an expert in every country, an expert in every single school. I can share the knowledge globally, and then have mentors who might be less qualified to just support with all the social, emotional components of the education. So I really wish that we come out of this stronger, and hopefully with some innovation, maybe think of redesigning the whole schooling system. And for the technology bit, as far as I'm concerned, I think in the UAE, WhatsApp was number one, because this is how all the rumors and all the parents, teachers, students, I think everybody's using WhatsApp more than anything else. So that's my answer. On top of everything else that all the examples that the others have mentioned.
Let me, because if you want, before we close, and on building on Asma's point, I think I remember when I was minister of the city, I launched the one laptop per child program in the city, but I did it given the chance that I was working with the city, I launched it with a full free internet connection that would allow kids to connect from their houses, not only in the school. We achieved that in 1 year. It was 2011. But going to Asma's point, the biggest surprise for me was the change that the technology created in the classroom. We started visiting schools, and we saw that the geography of the classroom had changed. Kids would put their desk in circles, and the teacher will pivot from being in the center of the circle to being part of the circle. And that had a huge impact, because what that is saying is once you have access to technology, teachers can be part of the circle of learning or help in the learning. And I hope that, as Asma was saying, we take this chance to see how we can impact. Here we are meeting, each one of us is at the same level, and we can really exchange experiences. And I think technology can have that impact. The thing is, you need to drive technology. In that case, it was not something we decided. It's not something we suggested. It was just something that came out of using computers in the classroom. But I think we can drive that change. And I hope that this conversation and others we can have will help us, each one of us in our country, influence that change towards that new school. You know, because this image I used to, in my conversations about the education revolution, I said, we've been upgrading a car for too long, you know, keep on upgrading this old car to try to make it work as fast as we want. Now I think it's time to redesign the car and jump into a spaceship and build that spaceship from the get-go. And I think this is an opportunity to really design the spaceship and start to implement it all over the world.
So Esteban, in terms of, I'm sure what's going to happen after this call is that we'll receive WhatsApps from our esteemed participants saying that, okay, what do we do? What's our next conversation or the next step in this? Not that we went with the intention of this being a series of any kind. What I heard from today's call was actually, obviously the world is very diverse. Even first world, when I say first world, I mean developed countries and economies have their challenges in terms of the way that they're having to approach this. And the thing that actually, you know, I put out on my LinkedIn bio profile just a few days ago, my daughter set up in her, you know, she's now homeschooling as well. And she had an iPad, she had my laptop, and she had another device. And there was a lot of actually pushback on that particular photo in the sense that she has more technology than most teachers do. And so when I listen to this discussion, the thing that's come up is the inequity point quite a bit. And maybe that should be a focus of a future call, and saying, what are the lessons we've learned in terms of how we get over this bump? Because that seems to be, you know, also related to how we build that rocket ship. How do you feel about that, Esteban?
I think it sounds good. I think that's the way to go. I work hard in getting everyone the info from this conversation, as fast as I can, and but I do believe that this has to be a repeated effort, and we got some people that couldn't join us today. I think it should be an open channel. We should use technology to learn too. And I think this has been, for me at least, a great learning experience.
So do you think in terms of future calls, we should do it in the same way with a similar group of people, or just blow it open with 3 or 4 key speakers on those subjects?
Well, I think the idea of, from what we got today, getting experts on certain areas and launching the call with an introduction of 10, 15 minutes on presentation of an expert in an area, I think is a good idea.
Wonderful. We now have the former minister of the province of Buenos Aires online as well.
Hi, Gabriel.
Hi, Esteban. Hi, Vicas.
How are you doing, my friend?
Excellent. And you?
So we've left the concluding remarks to you for this call, Gabriel.
I was not expecting anything less from you, sir. Thank you for always being on my support.
So the question is, how do you get over the hump about the social inequity that exists in our systems? Because Esteban is talking about the rocket ship.
Sorry, so a quick intro, because Gabriel was not only the minister of the largest state in the country with more than 4 million students, but he's also now in charge of the evaluation agency in the city of Buenos Aires.
I'm sorry, I'm late. I was on another meeting with the city and the secretaries.
That's okay. So Gabriel, the question was in terms of the challenges of constructing the future model of school and education system. I know that you were telling me when you were minister in the province of all the things that you saw that were challenging the notion of a 21st century education. Can you speak a little bit about that and how we get over that?
Yeah, and we are seeing it now at the different education systems in the world. This the first time that we have more than 800 million students doing homeschooling, imposed homeschooling in the world. We are seeing that in the city of Buenos Aires, where we are now pushing for the use of platforms, and we are assessing the way we should evaluate students, the way we should engage parents, the way we should communicate directly to parents or to parents through teachers. All that theoretical conversation is now a practical conversation, because everyone who is now working at the government or an NGO or at school has this as a practical conversation. That's what I think are the most interesting part of this very sad pandemic. That many of these theoretical solutions that we were seeing before, now we're trying to get them to keep students studying and not lose their calendar year or their school year.
So in terms of if you had to fast forward a year from now, what do you think we're going to see, say in your system, say in the province of Buenos Aires?
I see that if this isolation lasts many weeks or many months, we will see a lot of cultural changes or a lot of habit changes in terms of teleworking that is not very common in Latin America or very common in Argentina, in terms of e-commerce, things that are probably frequent or obvious in the US, in Europe, but they were not that common in Argentina, or at least in Buenos Aires. So teleworking, mobile working, we will see a much stronger presence of the knowledge society. That is something that you guys probably live for many years now in the UK or in the US, but we have not been living because we don't have enough technology, or because we don't have a good regulation, so we don't open the economy enough. We have not seen that innovation, technology in every sector as we have been seeing in other countries. And the same applies to education. Technology was not much used in education in Argentina. It was used in some schools, middle upper income family schools, but not in the system. Now it's the only way working in the system. Is technology, is online education, is teachers developing materials, because that's the only way that students will get an education. And the challenge there as well is the most vulnerable ones, because we were in the city, we are looking at the most vulnerable schools and how do we provide education to them. Some of them don't have enough connectivity. Some of them, parents are not able to stimulate their kids through technology. So those are the challenges we are seeing. But I think that if this isolation lasts, we will see this happening. It will not be a theoretical discussion. It will happen in the system. That technology will be present in all schools, in all families.
Great, thank you for that. Anyone got anything to ask for Gabriel? I know, Armand, you had some questions about Latin America education for your report.
Unfortunately, I would have to say bye to everyone. I loved this meeting, and I really hope that we can do this again soon.
Thank you, Leandro.
Thank you very much.
I do, Vikas, but I think they got answered by some of the explanations from Denis and Jaime and the rest, particularly with TV and radio, which I knew a bit about, but now I'm going to go do a bit more research on it just online. I do have a question about the inequities. So we're looking at, we do food services. I mean, in Canada, public education is 92%. We don't have private education in my area at all. And kids count on the school for some kids count on the school for a warm meal, the only warm meal of the day, protection, social services, that kind of stuff. And we're addressing that in many ways. But the one thing that I'm wondering about is, in terms of meals, how do you do it in South America or in the Middle East or in Australia? How is that done?
Public schools in Australia don't actually have a meal that's provided. A lot of private schools, we have a huge independent school sector with boarding. We'll have all of their students eat in a dining hall. But for example, we just found out yesterday that our school canteens had to close, and we're trying to work out how to get food in with the social distancing and schools still being open. So yeah, that's something that we're literally trying to navigate at the moment.
Okay. Esteban, how did you guys do it in Argentina when you were there? Or how's it done? Or Gabriel?
Esteban, I can tell you what we're doing now at the city, but Esteban, please go ahead.
No. As I mentioned before, an experience like this, we had something like this with the N1H1 crisis. It was shorter, obviously, and less impactful, but we did have some close downs in the city. First, we decided to use the extended time and vacation for classrooms. So we didn't replace it, but we did started using the Sarmiento plan, which is this online platform and one laptop per child program that I launched in 2010 as a tool for that. And it really prepared us. But the truth is that one of the things that Gabriel was saying is that teachers do not have the experience. So that's what we need a bigger effort this time. And obviously, at that time, it was mostly in the city. But now we have basically the system shut down a week ago, and it's going to stay that way at least through April 13th. So I don't know. I think Gabriel can give has just given a closer perspective of what we're doing now and the challenges we face.
So how do you bring the food?
We are feeding. We need to feed around 240,000 students now in the city. Until next week, until April the 1st, what we are doing is, even though the students are not going to attend classes at the schools are still open. So we are providing the food to the schools, and the kids can go there to eat. Of course, the level of the food is not the same, because when the kids were there, you had warm food. They were cooking at the school, no? So we don't have that. We have now cold food, sandwiches, and that kind of stuff that is not as nutritional as cooking at the school, of course. And what we are thinking, if this prolongs the whole April, we are thinking in picking some of the schools, not the 1,200 schools and sending food to all the schools, but pick some of the schools, 200, 250 schools, send the boxes of food for the next 10 days, and then having the families pick up and be able to cook the food in their homes. So not providing sandwiches anymore, but providing, food, pasta, salad, stuff that they can cook at their own houses.
Yeah, so you had a comment. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking about like some of our students who are given canteen vouchers, or there's different schools that have breakfast clubs, but there isn't a system-wide approach. And yeah, that's an issue. But even like the logistic challenge of trying to work out what happens when we don't even have the option of a canteen is what we're going to face tomorrow when I go to work.
Well, the problem we faced, and I'm not sure, Gabriel, what are your considerations? Because N1H1 wasn't as contagious as these viruses. So I'm not sure giving food away from the school is going to be a very popular option. I think people are going to be really scared. I mean, we did that in N1H1 crisis, but limited to very marginal areas in the city. But nowadays, getting people in line to get food might be not an option to be considered. I'm not sure. I'm just saying that might create certain risks.
One of the things that we're doing here is a lot of it's by bus, right? So our bus service is free for children, and only the children get on the bus. It's not a commute like it would be in London. So one of the things that they're doing is that they're dropping off the bus know which students to drop off food to. And they're doing it via sort of, okay, here's your food in the front of your house or at the apartment building. At a certain time, it's coming, and then you walk out, you pick it up, you Lysol the whole thing, you wash it, and then you bring it in type thing. But I'm just curious on how it's being done in other areas, just to see. That was my only question.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're almost close to the 2-hour mark. If you guys agree, I'll send you the transcript, both of the chat, that there has a lot of info there, including some of the reports that Armand mentioned and links, and the transcript of the conversation. That might take 24 hours. And then we see how we follow up. I think because we can look at some of the issues that came out and think of people that might be interested to do that intro as a kickoff and a fire starter in the next meeting.
Well, I also didn't appreciate perhaps the TV and radio angle to this.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fascinating, actually.
Yeah,
and
I
so
agree.
perhaps we can bring a few people.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
Esteban.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. Vikas, you look so good, man. You look younger, man. Yes. You look younger.
I'm a big fan.
He shaved for the meeting.
I shaved for the meeting, just for you.
Finally,
guys.
no, you lost some weight,
that
man.
memo.
Yeah, good. You look more handsome. Good, Vikas.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.